We don't accept charity from people like you. The words cut through the sterile hospital corridor like a scalpel, sharp and precise, leaving Dr. Marcus Williams standing frozen outside the pediatric oncology ward. In his weathered hands, he held a simple manila envelope containing a check that could change everything for the children inside those rooms. But the woman blocking his path, immaculate in her designer suit, clipboard clutched like a shield, had just reduced his life's mission to the color of his skin and the simplicity of his clothes. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, head of hospital development, stood between Marcus and the donation office like a well-dressed guardian protecting the institution's reputation. She had been expecting the wealthy Patterson family or perhaps the tech mogul everyone whispered about. Instead, she faced a tall black man in his 50s, wearing a simple button-down shirt that had seen better days, khaki pants with a small coffee stain, and shoes that spoke of long hours spent on hospital floors rather than boardroom meetings. "Excuse me?" Marcus's voice was calm, steady, the same tone he used when delivering difficult news to families who trusted him with their most precious treasures. "I said we don't need charity today," Sarah repeated, her eyes scanning him from head to toe with the practiced efficiency of someone who had learned to categorize people in seconds. "If you're looking for community service hours, or trying to make a small donation for tax purposes, you'll need to go through the proper channels. This floor is for major donors only." Marcus shifted the envelope to his other hand, feeling the weight of the 7-figure check inside. Behind Sarah, through the glass doors, he could see children in tiny hospital gowns playing in the common area. Some were bald from chemotherapy. Others wore masks to protect their compromised immune systems, but all of them were fighting battles that no child should have to face. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Marcus said quietly. "I'm here to make a donation to the pediatric oncology wing. I have an appointment with..." "With whom?" Sarah interrupted, her tone sharpening. "I handle all major donor appointments personally, and I don't have any meetings scheduled with..." She paused, clearly searching for a polite way to finish the sentence. "With someone like me?" Marcus offered, his voice still gentle but carrying decades of experience with such conversations. Sarah's cheeks flushed slightly, but her posture remained rigid. "Look, I'm sure your intentions are good, but we have protocols. The families here are going through enough without being approached by every well-meaning person who wants to help. If you want to donate your time, there are volunteer coordinators on the first floor. If you want to make a financial contribution, there are proper forms and background checks." "Background checks?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Security measures," Sarah explained, her voice taking on the practiced tone of someone reciting policy. "We can't just accept money from anyone who walks in off the street. Our donors are thoroughly vetted individuals with proven track records of philanthropy, people with references, people we can trust." Marcus looked past her again at the children beyond the glass. 3 years ago, one of those children had been Tyler Rodriguez, a 7-year-old boy with acute lymphoblastic leukemia, whose family couldn't afford the experimental treatment that might save his life. Marcus had quietly arranged for the funding, working through intermediaries to preserve the family's dignity. Tyler was now 10 years old, cancer-free, and playing Little League baseball. Sarah didn't know that Tyler was her cousin Maria's son. She didn't know that Maria Rodriguez had cried in Marcus's office, begging for any option that might save her little boy. She didn't know that Marcus had sold 3 of his rental properties to create a fund that would cover not just Tyler's treatment, but treatments for 5 other children whose insurance had failed them in their darkest hour. "I understand your concerns about security," Marcus said, reaching slowly into his jacket pocket. Sarah tensed and he paused, allowing her to see him withdraw only a business card. "Perhaps this will help establish my credentials." Sarah took the card reluctantly, as if accepting it might somehow contaminate her with whatever poverty she imagined he carried. Her eyes scanned it quickly. Dr. Marcus Williams, Chief of Pediatric Surgery, Children's Medical Research Institute. Below that, in smaller text, Board-Certified Pediatric Surgeon, Harvard Medical School. The card fluttered from her fingers like a leaf falling from a tree. Your doctor?" "Williams?" she stammered, bending to retrieve the card with hands that suddenly seemed unsteady. I am. The Dr. Williams who developed the Williams protocol for pediatric liver transplants? That would be me. The Dr. Williams who's been nominated for the Nobel Prize in Medicine 3 times? Marcus nodded quietly, watching as understanding dawned across Sarah's features like sunrise breaking through storm clouds. But instead of relief or embarrassment, he saw something else in her eyes: calculation. Dr. Williams, she said, her voice completely transformed. Honey where there had been vinegar moments before. I am so sorry. I had no idea. Of course, please come in. We would be honored to discuss your donation. But Marcus remained where he stood, the envelope still in his hands. Tell me, Ms. Mitchell, what changed between 30 seconds ago and now? I don't understand. 30 seconds ago, you didn't want charity from people like me. Now you're honored by my presence. The only thing that changed was your knowledge of my credentials. So I'm curious, what kind of person did you think I was 30 seconds ago, and what kind of person do you think I am now? Sarah's mouth opened and closed several times, but no words emerged. The hallway around them seemed to have grown quieter, as if the hospital itself was holding its breath. The check in this envelope, Marcus continued, his voice never rising above conversational level, represents 2 years of my salary. It's intended to fund a new wing dedicated to providing free treatment for children whose families can't afford care. Children like Tyler Rodriguez. At the mention of Tyler's name, Sarah's face went completely white. You know Tyler? She whispered. I know Tyler very well. I also know his mother, Maria. Lovely woman. She speaks about you often. Her cousin Sarah, who works at the hospital, who she's so proud of. She's mentioned how hard you work, how dedicated you are to helping sick children. Sarah's hands were trembling now, and she pressed them against her sides as if she could force them to be still. Tyler is my cousin. Yes, I know. His leukemia treatment, the experimental therapy that saved his life. Maria said an anonymous donor paid for everything. The insurance wouldn't cover it and they were facing bankruptcy, but then this miracle happened. Marcus said nothing, simply watching as the pieces fell into place in her mind. That was you, she said, and it wasn't a question. You saved Tyler's life. Tyler's treatment was funded through a charitable foundation that assists families in need. I may have had some involvement in arranging that funding. Some involvement? Sarah's voice cracked. Dr. Williams, that treatment cost $300,000. Maria told me the donor covered everything, the treatment, the hospital stays, even the travel expenses when they had to come here from Phoenix. You saved my cousin's life and you just protected your hospital from what you perceived as inappropriate solicitation, Marcus said gently. You were doing your job as you understood it. No. Sarah shook her head violently. I was being awful. I made assumptions about you based on my appearance, based on your expectations about what a major donor should look like. Tears were forming in the corners of Sarah's eyes, and she wiped them away with the back of her hand, leaving a small smudge of mascara. Tyler talks about his angel all the time. He says someday he's going to find the person who saved him and thank them properly. He wants to be a doctor when he grows up, just like his hero. Marcus felt something tight in his chest loosen slightly. How is Tyler doing now? He's wonderful, he's perfect. He's playing baseball and getting straight A's and driving his mother crazy with his energy. He's alive because of you. The envelope felt heavier in Marcus's hands now, weighted with the memory of a small boy who had looked up at him from a hospital bed and asked if the angels his grandmother talked about were real. Dr. Williams, Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. I need to apologize, not just for what happened here today, but for representing everything that's wrong with how we treat people in this world, for judging you based on my own prejudices and fears, for almost turning away the very person who had already given my family the greatest gift imaginable. Apology accepted, Marcus said simply. Is there anything I can do to make this right? Marcus considered this for a moment, looking once again at the children visible through the glass doors. Some were new faces he didn't recognize. Some might be faces he would come to know very well if their treatments required his specific expertise. All of them deserved the chance Tyler had been given. "Actually," he said, "there is something you can do." Sarah straightened, eager to somehow atone for her mistake. "Help me distribute this donation properly. Help me make sure it reaches the children who need it most, regardless of their family's ability to pay. Help me create a system where no parent has to choose between bankruptcy and their child's life." "Of course, absolutely. Whatever you need." Marcus handed her the envelope, and she accepted it with hands that were no longer trembling but steady with purpose. "There's one more thing," he said. "Anything. Don't tell Tyler it was me. Let him keep believing in angels. The world needs more people who believe in angels. If this story is touching your heart, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. And if you're not subscribed yet, now's the time." As Sarah walked ahead of him toward the donation office, Marcus wondered how many other potential angels she had turned away over the years. How many Tyler Rodriguez's had gone without help because someone's appearance didn't match the expected profile of a hero. But today, at least, the angels were getting through. Today, Tyler's angel and Tyler's cousin were going to change the world, one sick child at a time. Marcus walked in silence behind Sarah as she led him through the hospital corridors, her heels clicking against the polished floor, in a rhythm that reminded him of another desperate walk through these same halls 3 years ago. Then, it had been Maria Rodriguez's worn sneakers making the sound, and the destination had been his office, where a mother would beg him to save her dying son. The donation office was exactly as he remembered it, sterile, efficient, designed to make wealthy patrons feel comfortable while discussing the transfer of substantial sums. Sarah gestured toward a leather chair across from her mahogany desk, but Marcus found himself drawn to the window overlooking the hospital's healing garden below. "Dr. Williams?" Sarah's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Would you like coffee? Water? I can have my assistant bring anything you need." "I'm fine, thank you." But he wasn't fine. Standing in this building, holding that envelope, watching Sarah transform from gatekeeper to supplicant, it all transported him back to a Tuesday morning in October, when his life had intersected with Tyler Rodriguez's in a way that would change them both forever. 3 years earlier, Marcus had been reviewing surgical schedules when his assistant knocked on his door. "Dr. Williams, there's a family here to see you, the Rodriguez's. They don't have an appointment, but they've been waiting for 3 hours. The mother she's quite distressed." He had found Maria Rodriguez in the family consultation room, clutching a folder of medical records against her chest like armor. Her husband Carlos sat beside her with the hollow-eyed look of a man who had run out of hope. Between them, in a wheelchair that seemed far too large for his small frame, sat Tyler, 7 years old, bald from chemotherapy, but with eyes that still held the bright curiosity of childhood. "Dr. Williams," Maria had begun, her voice steady despite the tears tracking down her cheeks. "They told us you're the best pediatric surgeon in the country. They told us if anyone can save our son, it's you." Marcus had reviewed Tyler's case files during the hour-long meeting that followed. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia with complications that had damaged his liver beyond repair. The boy needed a liver transplant, followed by an experimental treatment protocol that combined new immunotherapy drugs with traditional chemotherapy. It was cutting-edge medicine that offered real hope, but came with a price tag that would destroy most families financially. His insurance approved the transplant surgery, Carlos had explained, his accent thick with emotion. "But they won't cover the experimental treatment. They say it's not proven enough, but without it, the cancer will likely return within 2 years." Marcus had finished gently. "The experimental protocol increases long-term survival rates to 92%. "How much does it cost?" Maria had asked, though her voice suggested she already knew the answer would be devastating. "The full treatment protocol, including the specialized medications, extended hospital stays and follow-up care, runs approximately $300,000. The silence that followed had been deafening. Marcus had watched Carlos reach for his wife's hand, watched Maria close her eyes as if the number was a physical blow. "We have some savings," Maria had whispered. "About $15,000. We could mortgage the house again, maybe get another 40,000. Carlos has been working double shifts at the warehouse and I've been cleaning offices at night after my regular job, but it's not enough, Tyler had said quietly, his young voice cutting through his parents' desperation with the brutal honesty of childhood. It's okay, Mama, I understand. That was the moment Marcus knew he couldn't walk away. Present day. Dr. Williams? Sarah's voice pulled him back to the present. She was standing beside her desk, watching him with concern. Are you all right? Sorry, just remembering something. About Tyler? Marcus nodded, returning to the chair across from her desk. Sarah opened the envelope he had given her, and her eyes widened as she saw the amount on the check. Dr. Williams, this is $2.5 million. That's correct. This will fund an entire wing. We could help dozens of children every year. That's the idea. Sarah set the check down carefully, as if it might dissolve if handled roughly. Can I ask, what made you choose this hospital? I mean, you could donate to any institution in the country. Harvard, Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic. Marcus considered how to answer. The truth was that he had chosen this hospital because of Tyler, because Maria Rodriguez had trusted him with her son's life here, and because he had seen firsthand how the staff's dedication could work miracles when given the proper resources. Sometimes the best medicine happens in places where people care more about healing than prestige, he said finally. Tyler's surgery, Sarah said slowly. It happened here, didn't it? 3 years ago? Tyler's surgery was quite complex. He needed a living donor transplant from his uncle, followed by months of the experimental treatment protocol. Maria told me about that. She said the doctors here were incredible, but she never said you were his surgeon. Of course Maria hadn't mentioned it. Marcus had insisted on confidentiality, partly to protect Tyler's family from unwanted attention, but mostly because he had learned long ago that anonymous generosity carried more weight than public charity. 3 years earlier, the night before Tyler's surgery, Marcus had found the boy awake in his hospital bed, staring out the window at the city lights below. Can't sleep? Marcus had asked, settling into the chair beside the bed. Dr. Williams, can I ask you something? Of course. My abuela says that when people are really sick, sometimes angels come to help them, but they don't look like the angels in church. They just look like regular people. Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman. Do you think that's true? About the angels? Marcus had looked at this small boy who was facing the fight of his life with more courage than most adults could muster. I think your grandmother is absolutely right. I think angels walk among us every day, and most of the time we don't even recognize them. I hope my angel finds me, Tyler had whispered. Tyler, Marcus had said gently, I think your angel already has. The surgery had taken 14 hours. Marcus had worked alongside Dr. Jennifer Cho, the hospital's chief transplant coordinator, and a team of specialists to give Tyler the best possible chance. The living donor procedure, Tyler's uncle Roberto had insisted on donating part of his liver, had gone flawlessly. The experimental treatment that followed had been grueling, but Tyler had responded better than anyone had dared hope. 6 months later, Tyler's cancer markers had been undetectable. A year later, he was back in school, playing with friends, living the normal life of a healthy 8-year-old boy. Present day. Dr. Williams, Sarah said quietly. Maria doesn't know it was you, does she? She doesn't know you paid for Tyler's treatment. The funding came through a charitable foundation. Patient privacy laws prevent me from discussing specific cases or funding sources. But it was you. Marcus met her eyes steadily. What I can tell you is that Tyler Rodriguez is a remarkable young man who deserved every chance to live a full, healthy life. Whatever resources were necessary to provide that chance were well spent. Sarah leaned back in her chair, shaking her head slowly. 3 years ago, my cousin's life was saved by an anonymous donor. Today, I almost turned away that same donor because I judged him by his appearance. Do you understand how that makes me feel? I understand that you made a mistake, and you acknowledged it. That's more than many people would do. It's not enough, Sarah said firmly. Dr. Williams, I need to tell you something about Tyler's case, something Maria probably never shared with you. Marcus waited. When Tyler was first diagnosed, Maria was working 3 jobs to try to afford his treatment. She was cleaning our office building at night. That's how I knew about Tyler's situation. I saw her crying in the supply closet one evening and she told me everything. Sarah paused, gathering herself. I could have helped. I had connections here at the hospital. I could have put her in touch with patient advocates or helped her navigate the financial assistance programs, but I didn't. You know why? Marcus remained silent. Because I was embarrassed. Maria is my cousin, but she's different from me. Different background, different education level, different social circle. I was afraid that helping her would somehow reflect poorly on my professional reputation here. I was afraid people would think I was using my position inappropriately. The admission hung in the air between them like a confession. So I did nothing. I told myself that Maria was resourceful, that she would figure it out on her own. I convinced myself that it wasn't my responsibility to fix her family's problems. Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper now. While I was protecting my precious reputation, Tyler was dying. While I was worried about appearances, you were actually saving his life. You did what I should have done, what family should have done, and you did it without expecting anything in return. Marcus thought about the nights he had spent in his office, liquidating investments and rearranging his finances to create the fund that would cover Tyler's care. He thought about the phone calls with insurance companies, the meetings with hospital administrators, the delicate negotiations required to provide help while preserving dignity. Sarah, he said gently, you're helping now. That's what matters. But what if you hadn't been there? What if Tyler's angel had never appeared? My cousin would have buried her son because I was too proud and too worried about my image to pick up a phone and make some calls. The weight of that possibility settled over both of them. In the silence that followed, Marcus found himself thinking about all the Tyler Rodriguezes who might not have angels waiting in the wings. All the families facing impossible choices in sterile consultation rooms. All the children whose only crime was being born into circumstances that couldn't weather the perfect storm of serious illness and insufficient resources. That's why this donation is so important, Marcus said finally. Not just for the children it will help directly, but for the families who won't have to choose between hope and financial ruin. For the cousins who won't have to live with the regret of not acting when action was needed. Sarah nodded, her fingers tracing the edge of the check. Dr. Williams, I want to make you a promise. This wing, these funds, this program, it's going to be different. No family will be turned away because they don't look like they belong. No child will go without treatment because their parents don't fit someone's idea of worthy recipients. That's a good promise, Marcus said. But promises are easy to make in moments of emotion. The real test comes later, when the moment has passed and the emotion has faded. When you're faced with the next Tyler Rodriguez, and he doesn't have an angel standing ready to write a check. Then I'll be his angel, Sarah said without hesitation. If I can't be the person who saves him medically, I can at least be the person who makes sure he gets to the people who can. The phone rang just as Sarah was preparing to process Marcus's donation. She glanced at the caller ID and froze. Maria, she whispered, showing Marcus the screen. It's my cousin. She calls me every Tuesday around this time. Marcus nodded. Please take it. I'll wait. Sarah answered with trembling fingers. Hi, Maria. How are you? Sarah, perfect timing. I'm actually at Tyler's school for his science fair presentation. He's been working on this project for months and you'll never guess what it's about. Even from across the desk, Marcus could hear the joy in Maria's voice, so different from the desperate woman who had sat in his office 3 years ago. What's his project about? Sarah asked, her eyes never leaving Marcus's face. Angels in medicine. He's researching all the ways that medical miracles happen, especially when anonymous donors help children get the treatments they need. He interviewed nurses, doctors, even some families who received help. Sarah, you should see him up there. He's so passionate about this. He wants to be a pediatric surgeon when he grows up, just like his hero. Marcus felt something catch in his throat. Through the phone's speaker, he could hear the distant sound of children's voices and the enthusiastic explanation of a 10-year-old boy who had turned his survival into a calling. His hero? Sarah managed. Dr. Marcus Williams at Children's Medical Research Institute. Tyler's never met him, but he's read everything about him. The Williams protocol, his research, his work with children's charities. Tyler says Dr. Williams proves that the best doctors aren't just good at surgery. They care about making sure every child gets the help they need, not just the ones whose families can afford it. Sarah's hands were shaking so violently now that she nearly dropped the phone. She looked across the desk at Marcus, who was sitting perfectly still, his expression unreadable. "Maria," Sarah said carefully. "What? What do you know about Tyler's donor? The person who paid for his treatment?" "Oh, Sarah, I wish you could have been there when we got the news. It was the darkest period of our lives. We had tried everything: second mortgages, borrowing from family, even starting a GoFundMe that raised maybe $3,000. The insurance company kept denying appeals, and we were facing the reality that we might have to watch our son die because we couldn't afford to save him." Marcus closed his eyes, remembering those phone calls from Maria during Tyler's treatment. The late-night conversations when she would call him directly, not knowing he was the one funding her son's care, just needing someone medical to talk to about Tyler's progress. He had listened to her fears, her hopes, her gratitude for the mysterious angel who had appeared just when they needed help most. Then one day, Maria continued, the hospital called and said everything had been taken care of. Not just the experimental treatment, but all of it. The surgery, the hospital stays, the medications, even our hotel expenses when we had to stay near the hospital for months. Someone had set up a fund specifically for Tyler's care. "Did you ever find out who it was?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. "Never. The lawyer said the donor wanted complete anonymity. All we know is that it was someone who believed Tyler deserved a chance to live. Someone who saw a sick little boy and decided that money shouldn't determine whether he lived or died." Sarah was crying now, tears streaming down her cheeks as she watched Marcus sitting across from her. The man who had saved her cousin's life, the man she had turned away an hour ago because he didn't look like her idea of a hero. "Maria, I need to tell you something." "Oh, wait," Maria interrupted. "Tyler wants to say hi. Tyler, come here. Your cousin Sarah is on the phone." There was a rustling sound, and then a young boy's voice filled the room, bright and healthy and alive. "Cousin Sarah, guess what? I won first place in the science fair." "That's wonderful, Tyler," Sarah managed. "Tell me about your project." "It's about medical angels. I researched all these cases where anonymous donors helped sick kids get better. There was this girl in Boston whose brain surgery was paid for by someone she never met, and a boy in Texas who got a heart transplant because a stranger decided to help. And me. I'm one of the examples too." Marcus gripped the arms of his chair, listening to Tyler's enthusiastic voice describe the very case he had made possible. "The coolest part," Tyler continued, "is that Dr. Williams, he's my hero doctor, he wrote this paper about how the best medical outcomes happen when hospitals and donors work together to help every child, not just the rich ones. My teacher said my project showed how one person's generosity can change everything for a whole family." "Tyler," Sarah said softly, "what would you say to your angel if you could meet him?" There was a pause, and when Tyler spoke again, his voice was more serious, older than his 10 years. "I would tell him thank you, but not just for the money. I would thank him for believing I was worth saving when everyone else was ready to give up. I would tell him that because of him, I get to grow up and maybe become a doctor myself. And I would promise him that when I'm older, I'm going to be someone's angel too." Sarah looked across the desk at Marcus, who had tears in his eyes now. This was the boy who had lain in a hospital bed 3 years ago, asking if angels were real. This was the child whose mother had begged for any chance, any hope, any miracle that might save her son's life. "Tyler," Marcus said quietly, speaking for the first time since the call began. There was silence on the other end of the line. "Tyler, did you hear that? Someone else is here who wanted to say hello." "Who is it?" Tyler asked. Sarah looked at Marcus questioningly. He nodded once, giving her permission. "Tyler, Sarah said, her voice breaking. I want you to meet someone very special. Someone who's been looking forward to hearing about your science fair project. Dr. Williams? Maria's voice came back on the line, confused. Sarah, what's going on? Why do you sound like you're crying? Maria, remember how you always said you wished you could thank Tyler's angel in person? Of course, but Sarah, you're scaring me. What's happening? Tyler's angel is sitting in my office right now. The silence that followed was complete and profound. Marcus could hear his own heartbeat in the quiet. That's not possible, Maria whispered. The donor was anonymous. The lawyers said, the lawyers were protecting his privacy at his request, Marcus said gently. Hello, Maria. Hello, Tyler. Oh my God, Maria breathed. Oh my God, is that really? Mama? Tyler's voice was small and wondering. Mama? Is that my angel? Marcus wiped his eyes and found his voice. Hello, Tyler. I heard you won first place at the science fair. I'm very proud of you. You're really him? You're really my angel? I'm really Dr. Marcus Williams. And you, Tyler Rodriguez, are one of the strongest, bravest patients I've ever had the privilege to help. The sound that came through the phone was part sob, part laugh, part pure joy. Maria was crying, Tyler was crying, and Sarah was openly weeping as she watched 3 years of mystery and gratitude and love converge in her hospital office. Dr. Williams, Tyler said, his voice thick with emotion. I have so many things I want to tell you. I'd like to hear all of them, Tyler. But first, let me tell you something. 3 years ago, when you asked me if angels were real, do you remember what I told you? You said angels walk among us every day, and we don't always recognize them. That's right. And Tyler, I need you to know something very important. You were my angel too. I was? You taught me that being a doctor isn't just about surgery or medicine. You taught me that sometimes the most important thing we can do is simply believe that every child deserves a chance to grow up. You reminded me why I became a doctor in the first place. Sarah watched as Marcus transformed before her eyes. The quiet, dignified man who had endured her humiliation with grace was now speaking with the warmth and tenderness of someone talking to his own child. Tyler, you said in your project that one person's generosity can change everything for a whole family. But what you might not realize is that one family's courage and love can change everything for that person too. You and your parents changed me. You made me a better doctor and a better man. Dr. Williams. Tyler's voice was small but determined. I meant what I said. When I grow up, I'm going to be someone's angel too. I'm going to be a doctor like you. And I'm going to help kids whose families can't afford treatment. I believe you will, Tyler. And when that day comes, remember that being an angel isn't about having money to give. It's about seeing someone who needs help and deciding that their life matters. It's about choosing compassion over indifference, hope over despair. Will you help me? When I'm ready to go to medical school? Not with money, Tyler added quickly, but with advice? With teaching me how to be the kind of doctor who remembers that sick kids are more than just cases. Marcus looked at Sarah, who was nodding through her tears. Tyler, Marcus said, I would be honored to help you become the doctor you're meant to be. But I think you're already well on your way to being exactly the kind of angel this world needs. Through the phone, they could hear Tyler's excited voice telling his classmates that his angel was real, that his hero was on the phone, that dreams really do come true when people choose to care about each other. Sarah ended the call and sat back in her chair, emotionally exhausted. Dr. Williams, she said finally, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Of course, when you walked into this hospital today, when I treated you so terribly, when I judged you and dismissed you and said we didn't accept charity from people like you, in that moment, did you know that Tyler was my cousin? Marcus met her eyes steadily. I knew. You knew? And you still went through with the donation? Even after I humiliated you? Sarah, Tyler's family needed this hospital to be a place where miracles are possible for every child. not just the ones whose parents look like they belong in boardrooms. Your treatment of me today showed me that there's still work to be done, still hearts to be changed, still minds to be opened. This donation isn't just about funding medical care. It's about creating a culture where no child is turned away and no family is judged for their circumstances. You used my own prejudice as a teachable moment. I used this opportunity to plant seeds of change. Tyler's science fair project shows that he understands what real medicine looks like. Now it's our job to make sure the next generation of children receives that kind of care, regardless of their family's ability to pay for it. Sarah picked up the check again, looking at it with new understanding. This isn't just a donation, is it? This is Tyler's legacy. This is his way of making sure no other child has to pray for an anonymous angel, because the system will already be there to catch them. Now you're beginning to understand, Marcus said with a smile. 6 months later, the Tyler Rodriguez Angel Wing opened its doors at the Children's Hospital. The dedication ceremony took place on a crisp spring morning, with families, medical staff, and community members gathered in the healing garden that Tyler had once gazed at from his hospital room window. Marcus stood quietly at the back of the crowd, wearing the same simple clothes that had caused Sarah to judge him so harshly months before. He watched as speakers took the podium to discuss the revolutionary approach the new wing represented: free treatment for any child in need, regardless of their family's financial situation, supported by an endowment that would ensure no child would ever again face Tyler's original predicament. Before we officially open the Angel Wing, Sarah announced from the podium, her voice carrying across the garden, I want to share a story about judgment, redemption, and the true meaning of charity. Marcus shifted uncomfortably as Sarah began to recount their first meeting, describing her own prejudices and the lessons she had learned about recognizing angels in unexpected forms. She didn't mention his name, respecting his preference for privacy, but her words painted a clear picture of transformation, both institutional and personal. The anonymous donor who made this wing possible taught me that charity isn't about giving from a position of superiority, Sarah continued. It's about recognizing our shared humanity and responding to need with compassion, not judgment. In the front row, Tyler Rodriguez sat between his parents, wearing a small suit and tie, his thick black hair grown back and his face glowing with health. Beside him sat his uncle Roberto, whose liver donation had made Tyler's survival possible, and his grandmother Elena, who had never stopped believing in angels. As the ceremonial ribbon was cut and the doors to the Angel Wing opened, families began touring the new facility. Marcus watched from a distance as children who might have been turned away elsewhere were welcomed with open arms, their parents' relief palpable as they realized their children's lives would not be held hostage by insurance limitations or financial constraints. Dr. Williams? Marcus turned to find Tyler Rodriguez standing beside him, having somehow slipped away from his family during the tour. The boy was taller now, his face fuller, his eyes bright with the unmistakable vitality of a child who had been given the gift of a future. Tyler, Marcus said softly, kneeling down to the boy's eye level. You look wonderful. I feel wonderful, Tyler replied, then paused, studying Marcus's face with the intensity of someone seeing a long-awaited dream become reality. I knew it was you. You did? When you talked to me on the phone that day. Your voice. I remembered it from the hospital from before my surgery. You used to come check on me, even when you weren't my main doctor anymore. You always asked if I needed anything, if my family was okay. Marcus felt his throat tighten. You were a special patient, Tyler. You all were. Dr. Williams, can I tell you something? Of course. Tyler glanced around to make sure they were alone, then stepped closer. I used to have nightmares after I got better. Not about being sick, but about other kids who might be sick right now whose families can't afford to help them. I would wake up crying because I thought about children dying while I got to live. The honesty in Tyler's voice was devastating. Marcus remembered his own sleepless nights after Tyler's treatment, wondering about all the children he couldn't help, all the families facing impossible choices in sterile consultation rooms. But now, Tyler continued, his voice growing stronger, because of this place, because of what you did, I don't have those nightmares anymore. Because now I know that other kids will have angels too. Marcus had to look away for a moment, overwhelmed by the simple, profound truth of a child who understood that surviving meant more than just living. It meant ensuring others could live too. Tyler, there's something I want you to have. Marcus reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a small wrapped package. Tyler opened it carefully, revealing a stethoscope, not a toy, but a real medical instrument, child-sized and engraved with words that made Tyler's eyes go wide. Tyler Rodriguez, future angel, Dr. M. Williams. This belonged to me when I was starting medical school, Marcus explained. I want you to have it to remind you of your promise to be someone's angel someday. Tyler held the stethoscope like it was made of precious metal, his fingers tracing the engraving reverently. Dr. Williams, will you show me how to use it? Marcus smiled and guided Tyler's hands, showing him how to position the earpieces, how to place the diaphragm. What do you hear? Tyler listened intently to his own heartbeat, his face serious with concentration. I hear my heart. What does it sound like? Strong, healthy, like it's ready to help people. That's exactly what I hear too. They were interrupted by Maria Rodriguez, who had been searching for her son throughout the ceremony. When she saw Tyler with Marcus, her face lit up with the same radiant joy Marcus remembered from their phone conversation months earlier. Dr. Williams, she said, approaching with tears already forming in her eyes. I can't believe you're here. I wouldn't miss Tyler's big day. Maria looked around at the bustling activity of the Angel Wings opening, families touring facilities that would serve children for generations to come. All of this, it's because of Tyler, isn't it? Because of what happened to us. It's because Tyler reminded me why I became a doctor in the first place, Marcus replied. And because your family showed me what real courage looks like. Carlos Rodriguez joined them, extending his hand to Marcus with the quiet dignity of a man who understood the magnitude of what they were witnessing. Dr. Williams, Maria told me what you said on the phone that day, about Tyler being your angel too. I want you to know that we understand what you meant. Do you? Before Tyler got sick, we were just people living our lives, worrying about ordinary things. But watching him fight, watching strangers like you step forward to help, watching this whole community come together, it changed us. It made us better people. Tyler didn't just survive his cancer. He survived it in a way that inspired all of us to be more generous, more compassionate, more willing to help others. Marcus nodded, thinking about the ripple effects of that one moment 3 years ago, when he had decided that Tyler Rodriguez's life was worth saving, regardless of the cost. Dr. Williams, Tyler said, still wearing his new stethoscope around his neck, will you come with us to see the other kids? I want to tell them about you. I want them to know that angels are real. They walked together through the Angel Wing, visiting children in various stages of treatment. Tyler introduced Marcus to each young patient as my doctor and my angel, sharing his story with the unself-conscious honesty of childhood. Marcus watched as Tyler's presence brought hope to parents who were facing the same impossible choices the Rodriguez family had once confronted. In the pediatric oncology ward, they stopped at the room of a 6-year-old girl named Aisha, whose parents had been struggling to afford treatment for her rare form of leukemia. Tyler sat beside her bed and began telling her about his own journey, about being scared and sick, about the mysterious angel who had appeared just when his family needed help most. But you're better now? Aisha asked, studying Tyler's healthy appearance. I'm perfect now, Tyler assured her. And you're going to be perfect too. Because this place is special. This place makes sure every kid gets better, no matter what. Marcus stood in the doorway, watching Tyler comfort Aisha with the authority of someone who had walked this path and emerged victorious. This was what survival looked like when it was lived with purpose. This was what healing looked like when it extended beyond the original patient to encompass an entire community. Tyler, Aisha said quietly, do you think my angel will come too? Tyler looked across the room at Marcus, then back at Aisha with absolute certainty. Your angel is already here. Sometimes angels look like doctors. Sometimes they look like donors. Sometimes they look like new friends who understand what you're going through. But they're always here when you need them most. As they prepared to leave that evening, Sarah approached Marcus in the hospital lobby. She looked different, lighter somehow, as if the weight of her past judgments had been lifted and replaced with something more substantial. "Dr. Williams, I wanted to thank you again. Not just for the donation, but for showing me what real charity looks like. What does it look like to you now?" "It looks like seeing someone in need and responding with your whole heart, regardless of their appearance or background. It looks like giving in a way that preserves dignity and creates hope. It looks like understanding that we're all one tragedy away from needing an angel ourselves." Marcus smiled. "That's a good definition. I also wanted you to know that we've had 12 other major donors come forward since the Angel Wing opened. People who heard Tyler's story, who learned about what's possible when we choose compassion over judgment. Your one act of generosity has inspired an entire movement." "Tyler's story inspired a movement," Marcus corrected gently. "I just provided some funding." "No," Sarah said firmly. "You provided hope. You proved that miracles are possible, that angels exist, that no child has to die because their family can't afford to save them." As Marcus walked to his car that evening, he reflected on the journey that had brought him to this moment. 3 years ago, he had made a decision to help one sick child. Tonight he had watched that child comfort another sick child in a hospital wing funded by their shared story. He thought about Tyler's nightmare, his fear that other children might die while he got to live. And he thought about Tyler's transformation of that fear into purpose, his determination to become someone's angel himself. If this story moved you, don't stop here. Click the next one, subscribe, and share this with someone who still believes in kindness. 6 months later, Marcus received a handwritten letter from Tyler, complete with drawings of doctors helping children and angels with stethoscopes around their necks. The letter read, "Dear Dr. Williams, I started volunteering at the Angel Wing on weekends. I read to the little kids and tell them about getting better. Yesterday, a mom asked me if I really believed angels were real. I told her that angels are just regular people who decide that love is more important than fear, that helping is more important than judging, and that every child deserves a chance to grow up and be someone's angel too. Thank you for teaching me that being an angel isn't about having wings or halos. It's about having a heart that cares more about other people than about yourself. I can't wait to start medical school someday. I can't wait to be the kind of doctor who remembers that every patient is somebody's miracle waiting to happen. Love, Tyler Rodriguez, future angel." Marcus framed the letter and hung it in his office, where it served as a daily reminder that the most powerful medicine isn't found in pharmaceutical companies or surgical suites. It's found in the simple decision to see another person's need and respond with open hands and an open heart. Sometimes charity begins with refusing to accept no charity today. Sometimes healing begins with one person's willingness to be an angel for someone who believes angels only exist in fairy tales. And sometimes the most profound transformation happens not in the person who receives help, but in the person who gives it, and discovers that generosity is the greatest gift they could ever give themselves. The shoes we judge, the clothes we dismiss, the appearances we criticize, they might belong to the very angel our family has been praying for.